One of the central key themes that we explored this week was diversity and inclusion. We explored this both as a moral imperative that diversity and so-called stakeholder fairness is morally imperative. But we also looked at the business case and how managing people and importantly, learning to work inclusively is a crucial skill to the former, both moral imperative, but also, and this is where I want us to do a little bit of work today, sustained performance and innovation. Sustained performance and innovation. So in today's session, for example, I asked students what are some of those qualities, and many of you pointed out open-mindedness. And so I thought I'd take a turn to look at what does open-mindedness mean. In his 2016 book, Working with Emotional Intelligence, Daniel Goleman, the man who brought us the term emotional intelligence in the 90s, he has a framework for the emotional competence framework for what that looks like in the workplace. It has two parts: personal competence, the ABCs of personal competence, and two components of social competence. Social competence. The first one is empathy, and the second one is social skills, how to apply those skills in the workplace. I'd like to look at what empathy means because that's the heart of what we mean often when we say open-minded to others' ideas. So according to Daniel Goleman, there are these components of empathy: understanding others, developing others, service orientation, leveraging diversity, and political awareness. So right off the bat, we hear the word diversity. So let's look at what he means by diversity and how that fits into the other components and why that cohesively defines open-mindedness. Leveraging diversity, cultivating opportunities through different kinds of people. So again, working inclusively, working to include different perspectives. And again, as I often say, some of life's biggest problems, climate change, for example, or racism, sexism, these things can only be solved when we think of them in very new ways and we approach them in very new ways. And of course, cooperatively, that solutions or ways forward in looking at these topics will only work if we come up with solutions cooperatively, solutions that involve everyone's involvement and loyalty. With that said, we also look at the other elements of empathy: understanding others, seeing others' feelings and perspectives, and taking an active interest in their concerns. So really seeing from another's point of view, developing others, sensing others' development needs and bolstering their abilities. We often talk about a needs assessment, understanding how others see their needs in a situation, whether it be a decision or a conflict, particularly when there is conflict amongst stakeholder interests. Service orientation, anticipating, recognizing, and meeting customers' needs. Well, thinking positively, seeing that there is a benefit, understanding that even when there's conflict, there's what we call a middle path. There's a joint way forward, even if our perspectives are very different. Belief or even faith in a middle path is one of those so-called empathic, open-minded skills. And finally, political awareness, reading a group's emotional currents and power relationships. How are people differently positioned in both society and equally within the power relationships in your workspace? We spoke very distinctly about stereotypes and how stereotypes may differently impact people in society across marginalized or empowered groups of people in society. So that comes back to honoring and valuing diversity. And one way to honor and value diversity is to have faith that diversity itself will create a more inclusive society, one that we know that builds more sustainable policies and practices because by their very nature, they're fair. By their very nature, they're morally right. By their very nature, they're inclusive. And so all of these things are linked to everything that we spoke about this week. And I want us to rest assured that when we add theory, knowledge to real world practices, we can also believe ourselves to be critical thinkers.